Hello, everybody. Welcome to my podcast. My name is Kaylee O'Connor, and I am your host. And it is just a little bit after midnight on January 1st, 2023. And I said to myself, I want to start my resolution very, very early to start this podcast. I've had these microphones for 3 years. And it was time to just do the dang thing, you know? So we're working with what we have, obviously, and I will get to that in just a second. But I wanted to welcome all of you and thank you for listening and just checking it out. And hopefully, as we go along, the sound quality, camera quality, lighting, background, it'll all just grow and mature with time. But I really like this situation. Number one, it's the best sound situation I have in my house. But number two, I really think it's reflective of there's so many times in my life where I'm like, I'm going to wait to do this until I have the perfect scenario, until I have the perfect layout, the perfect background, fill in the blank. And the reality is, you don't really need it. I think people will still listen to this podcast, whether I have a very messy closet behind me or not. And I have a literal chair holding up all of my equipment. And I think that'll also be a testament to growth over time. If I do get into a space or I have a space in my home that's just set up, there's a lot of technical things I've already learned like the last 2 hours trying to put this together. And so I guess I just want to start by encouraging all of you, if you also want to start a podcast, like you don't have to have the latest and greatest technology and you don't have to have the most amazing background. You can just make it work in your home as is, and it doesn't need to be complicated by any means. So, as I said earlier, I really want to take this intro podcast episode to kind of explain and introduce myself and also just start to kind of create and cultivate community here. My main goals of starting this podcast are just to start discussion, to create connection, to, have a community that really loves to discuss different ideas. And this is kind of going to be, at least at this point, similar to Anything Goes by Emma Chamberlain, but I wanted to have the YouTube side of it. Number one, I like to watch podcasts that have visuals, but number two, I like to see the comments. On TikTok, the comments are like what make the videos, and I feel that very deeply for YouTube and for podcasting as well. I love to see what people pick up on or other thoughts, other ways of thinking. And so I just think that this is a great way to start that community aspect. But I also understand that you're probably watching, if you haven't followed me on other socials or you don't know me personally, it's probably like, who is this girl? So I wanted to just give a quick rundown about some things I really like, and maybe there are some things that we have in common that we can learn about each other. And I'd love to hear who you are in the comments, and I will also have other prompts for you to answer in the comments as we go on with the intro episode. So I think I'm going to start by just pounding through some fun facts about me. Okay, it's going to be like a college class. I usually hated like the first day of class when a professor would say, tell us 3 fun facts about yourself. And I'm like, I have nothing to tell you. So this is what I have. I'm 27 years old. I live in Mendota Heights, Minnesota, and my major was fashion merchandising. My minor is a very long title. It's integrated marketing, communication, and design. What does that mean? That means traditional marketing mixed with social media marketing and a tiny bit of graphic design, like the tiniest, slightest bit of that as well. And it's really just too generic. Like my major and minor are just generic majors and minors that really go well with marketing, content creation, UGC, blogging, vlogging, social media. They all kind of work together, whether it be specifically for fashion and merchandising clothing or accessories, or in my current role at my full-time job where I do like grocery merchandising. So the same aspects can be brought to both types of work. I was a blogger. I started in 2014 and I went until actually this last year, and I didn't renew my website anymore. I just didn't feel like it was necessary at this time. And I also had already switched over from back in the day in 2014 when you would start blogging, you had to have this very creative name. And so I came up with the sweltering sweater. It literally meant nothing. It had no meaning to me. And so I definitely was like, I got to just switch it to my name because I want to create myself as a brand going forward. And I don't want to like mess around with the whole is her title, like what's her real name type of deal. So, I'd already switched that. And so I've kind of moved from blogging to more content creation, marketing, and different types of vlogs. So if you're watching my YouTube, you'll see a lot of travel vlogs that I've done throughout the United States. Now, I obviously would love to expand that experience and really have maybe a few international trips this year that I can put on there. But my focus right now is currently in terms of a financial sense and an enjoyment sense. I like to style clothing. I like to do hauls, get ready with me, things like that. And I'm really trying to grow that on TikTok as well in that community over there. And then I also work for a local eye care clinic, but more so my bigger paying roles are working with ethical, sustainable, fair trade brands, clothing brands, accessory brands, and really just creating content for them, whatever they're looking for, kind of bringing that to life. And so that's like user generated content basically, or content creation. And so that's where I make a lot of my side money. As I mentioned, I have a full-time job, but on the side, that's where I make a lot of my money. And then kind of for enjoyment, I just love the travel vlogs. I love putting them together. And again, I just think longer form content like this or like travel vlogs are what really create a community. I think we're going to see a turn back to that in 2023 because I think TikTok has got us like every 5 seconds our attention span is so short. And I think we're going to see people feeling like they don't have relationships with those people that they know online. I was actually talking about this with my parents tonight when we were watching kind of the New Year's Eve specials that are on TV here in the United States. I assume they're in other countries too. But I feel like I watch these and I don't know who half these people are. And I'm 27. Like, I'm not even old. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not out of touch by any means. But I don't know who half these musical artists are. And I think it's because they come up through TikTok and they have a really specific fan base. And it just is so fast that I don't create a connection with them as a listener or as someone who's seeing them on the television. So I think we will see a turn back towards that longer form content. But that's just a beginner on me. Obviously, I'm getting off a little bit on a rabbit trail, but you'll find that'll happen a lot here probably. I like to think through every aspect and every avenue of a concept. And so hopefully you guys can keep up with me and we can really dig deep. Let's talk about what you can expect from the podcast. It's mostly going to be topics I'm going to choose every single week to focus in on, niche down to, and really dive deep. And I'm anticipating that it'll be weekly. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to aim for a weekly podcast. This week there might be 2 because I'm doing the intro tonight and I might do 1 this week. But that's what you can really look forward to. I haven't decided on a day yet. This is all it's very against my nature. I'm very much a planner. I'm very much we're going to do this and it's going to be at this time and we're going to upload it here and we're going to plan this and this is all going to be correct. And this is the first thing I've really ever done in my life where it's just like, we're just going to go with the flow and we're going to see what happens. I have no clue what this will look like in the future. It could totally change in the next episode, but for now, this is my goal. Weekly, topical, and I will have a visual option if you're watching the YouTube option, and then I also will try to get the audio up on other platforms for streaming. Well, my camera died, so my apologies, but we're back if you're watching the visual one. I wanted to end this by talking about the potential name that I'm thinking about for this podcast. And then, as I said, a lot of this is going to be go with the flow. And in the aspect of creating community, I want the people who are listening to actually be drawn to the name that I'm thinking of. So I've spent the last couple months honestly thinking about this. play on words, different types of words, anything that could go with my name really well. And I just felt like I kept coming up short, like it just wasn't fitting. Or I would look online and it would already be connected to like 3 or 4 other podcasts, and that term would or that word would. And I was like, I just kind of want something that's, it doesn't have to be fully original, but I want something semi on its own to stand out. And so this is the name that I'm thinking of. Gratis, an adverb or adjective meaning without charge or free of charge or given for free. It comes from the Latin. It's either gratia or gratia. It's pronounced differently online. And with different declensions or endings, it can mean anything from grace to thankfulness to influence to friendship. I thought this was a good name for a few reasons. One, I have a background in Latin. I took Latin for 4 years. Now, did I retain Latin in those 4 years? No, I did not. But I felt like it was something that was a little bit truer to my history and to me in that way. Two, because these are the thoughts that live in my head rent free, as the kids would say. And so I thought something that meant without charge, free of charge, or given for free would make sense. Something that is freely in your head, but also information that's freely given, or discussions that are freely started, and having an open space to freely talk. Kind of went with that idea. Number 3, the extension of that word, or the different declensions, as I mentioned earlier, can change what the meaning of that word becomes. And so I felt like the extensions of that word encompass a majority of what I would like to come out of this podcast. A free discussion that influences others and their conversations, where we create a community or friendships. So kind of putting all those words together, those are things that I want to be outcomes, and to be fruit, so to say, of this podcast. And finally, number 4, people from many languages can understand from the title what I'm trying to say. So there are over 25 languages that I found online that use some variation of this word, and then it becomes different meanings. But I just thought across the board, if I want to have something that is important outside of the United States and influential outside of the United States, I wanted a word that meant something outside of just our language or our culture. And so I think I'm going to go with the Gratis podcast. And I want you guys to say kind of how you're feeling about that. Do you like that idea? Are there other ideas that you would like better? Other words that you would like better? You just let me know. And this is just really going to be a lot of trial and error kind of thoughts and feedback. And I really want to build something with those who are following along and who are supporting, because like a business, you would be able to support and become a shareholder or something in a business. A podcast isn't necessarily like that. I would love if people started sponsoring my podcast, but I thought this was a great way to kind of have shareholders of the podcast, is to have you guys give your feedback on what you're thinking about different things, and what you would like changed. So I just wanted to invite you guys in to introduce myself, build a little bit of community and credibility, and give you an idea of what this podcast is going to be about and the inspiration behind it with this name. I just want to thank you guys for listening, and I want to wish you a very happy and healthy new year.